Remember I told you the difference between wanting something and deciding? This is a perfect anecdote for that. There were a lot of people in the office who wanted to not be around cigarette smoke. But wanting it didn't do anything. They could talk about it, they could ask for it, but they were just sort of wanting it. I wanted it until I decided I wasn't going to have it anymore. Once I decided, it was over. Allow me to tell a story from years ago. This story won't tell you much about China, but I was reminded of it and it was funny. And it goes like this. A million years ago, when I was young and I worked in the corporate environment at the phone company, I was in a cubicle environment, and this is so long ago that smoking was allowed indoors. So I would be surrounded by people smoking cigarettes indoors. And, I've got mild asthma, and it was just horrible. Like, it just smelled, and it was unpleasant. I couldn't work with that smell. But, of course, it was legal at the time. So I would talk to my boss, and my boss would say, what can I do? It's legal. It's allowed. What can I do? So that situation persisted for a while. And keep in mind that this is before I started Dilbert. I was just a guy in a cubicle. And it's important for the historical, value of the story, you have to know that this was way before I was known for being persuasive. That's important to the story. So every day I would think, gosh, what am I going to do? I can't put up with this. And I've already asked management, and they said, we're not going to change it. Well, one day, as luck would have it, the corporate folks decided that we all had to sign off on some workplace safety documents. And that each person had to look at the documents and read them, and then they had to sign that they understood the workplace safety rules and that they would implement them. So it wasn't enough that you knew what they were. You were basically committing that if you saw a workplace safety problem, that it was your job to do something about it. And one of the things they required is that if a workplace is unsafe, that you should immediately inform management and then not go to work there. So it was your responsibility to not work where it was unsafe. It was only your responsibility to tell management that you weren't going to work there. And then they need to change it. So I get the document, and I'm looking down the list of known problems. And it was listing carcinogens. And it listed tobacco, secondhand tobacco smoke. So on the company's own documents, the official document that I had to sign to promise that I would comply with it, it said that if I was in a situation with secondhand tobacco smoke, I was in a dangerous workplace area. So I complied. And I informed my management that I wouldn't be coming to work anymore until the workplace was created to be safe. And I said, it's nothing personal. I'm just going to use the company policy that says this is an unsafe workplace. I mean, it's right here. I'm not making this up. I'm reading it right off the page. And I'm in one. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's no question about the data. I'm sitting right next to a smoker. So I said, I'll come back to work when it's safe. So I went home. A day goes by, and my immediate supervisor calls and says, are you serious about this? Or words to that effect. And I said, why wouldn't I be serious about it? It's the workplace policy. I'm just following your own policy. I can't go to work until it's safe. That's your rule. I'm not making the rules up. He talks to his boss. His boss calls me the next day. So this is day 2, where I'm being paid, but I'm not going to work. So far this is good for me, right? My boss's boss calls and said, are you serious about this? I said, yeah, totally serious about it. I'm not coming back to work until the smoking is gone. And then my boss's boss called. I may be remembering some of this a little approximately, but it was basically this story. And and said, "Are you serious about this?" And I said, "Yep." And about a day later, my boss called and said that they'd rearranged the office and put the smokers in one place, and they would have me in another place. So I decided to go back to work, because they moved me to a non-smoking part of the building, and it was only maybe months after that the whole company banned smoking indoors. Now, part of what I did was make sure people knew my story, because the company buckled. They had to. They had to. What were they going to do? It was their own policy. It was in writing, and they just gave it to me and forced me to sign it at the risk of being fired if I didn't sign it. Now, what would happen after I told all the people in my office that they could just go home and get paid, and they didn't have any chance of getting fired? Well, that was the end of smoking at Pacific Bell. So, my point is that we can certainly tell China that we're not going to open up travel until their wet markets are closed. We could do that, because you have to make sure that they know you're not bluffing. It's all about knowing you're not bluffing. And let me tell you, I was willing to get fired. I would have gone to the local newspaper. I would have made it a national story to the extent that I could have. So remember I told you the difference between wanting something and deciding? This is a perfect anecdote for that. There were a lot of people in the office who wanted to not be around cigarette smoke. But wanting it didn't do anything. They could talk about it, they could ask for it, but they were just sort of wanting it. I wanted it until I decided I wasn't going to have it anymore. Once I decided, it was over. I was not going to be around it. Now, I might have lost my job. It might have been big consequences, but I had already decided. So that's the difference between deciding. So if I had lost my job, that was the price I was going to pay, but I had already decided.